Okay, so I start. Welcome to the class of International Trade and Finance. Today we will be hosting two debates, both of them with interesting topic, controversial, and that have reasons in favor and against them. The first one that we will start is about Euroization and Dollarization. But before introducing my guest speakers, I will be short talking about what is Euroization or Dollarization. So, Dollarization refers to the case when a country decides to abandon its own currency and to substitute it for a foreign one. The term Dollarization is there because most of the cases it was US dollar that was used as a foreign currency, but this is not the case, as we have seen actually even with Kosovo, that other foreign currencies might be used. Another distinguishment that should be noted is between official dollarization and unofficial dollarization. So the difference is that unofficial dollarization is the usage of foreign currency, but not as part of an official monetary policy of that responsible authorities, government or the central bank. But it is convenient for the businesses and for the consumers to use that currency. So without losing any more time, I will introduce my guest. On my left and to your right, it's Zimmer Bukoljai, Governor of Central Bank of Kosovo, and Edita Nipiri, Head of Economic Chamber of Kosovo. While on the other side we have Evgen Thoci, which is a leader of opposition bloc, and Denis Jeka, monetary analysis. So first I want to start with Mr. Imeri. What can you say about the effect of Euroization and Dollarization that they have on macroeconomic stability and also on the development of the financial sector for the countries that are engaging in such Dollarization?
First of all, I want to thank you for your invitation. First, I will start with some advantages of Euroization or Dollarization in the country. For example, first, they will benefit individuals, businesses, and in general the whole economy. Some of the advantages will be more choice and stable prices for consumers and citizens, greater security and more opportunity for businesses and markets, improved economic stability and growth, more integrated financial market. To start with your question, I would mention the case of Kosovo when Kosovo adopted the Euroization. Euroization supported the development of Kosovo financial sector, which had to be created from scratch after the conflict. At the beginning, there were no banks in Kosovo. After the Euroization, they come also some of the banks. To continue with your question, I would say monetary stability is one of the key opponents of this question. At the time when Kosovo opted for Euroization, annual inflation stood at over 40% or more. Adopting euro as a national currency brought also monetary stability to Kosovo. The risk of devaluation of the national currency almost was removed from them. The economy of Kosovo does not face significant exchange risk by the same way Euroization has prevented Kosovo for double exchange currency rate, the legal one and informal one. In the case of macroeconomic stability, we can say that Euroization is expected to foster macroeconomic stability, solve the credibility problem, but mainly enhance fiscal discipline by eliminating the possibility of printing money to cover fiscal deficits. In this case, you can see before 1999, when Kosovo used dinners, they had a lot of inflation and money deficits. Over a long period of time, when other conditions are also met, it should lead to increased foreign direct investment, which is one key element for economic booster to improve economic situation in Kosovo. Generally, Euroization is expected to foster economic integration of the euro, adopting country with the economic of the issuing country. In this case, the whole economy or euro area. Another important thing would be the reduction of transaction cost. The introduction of euro simplified and significantly reduced transaction cost, especially when you consider the importance of trade within the Kosovo economy.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kolai, Mr. Miri mentioned the higher investment that could be generated from dollarization and Euroization. Can you give us some specific examples, and has this been the case for that?
Firstly, thank you for inviting us here. And yes, since we know that at the beginning of 2000, when our economy was down, our people themselves choose to have another currency other than they had before. They had so much Deutschmark in circulation during that time, and it was the only option for even for the EU states and for UNMIC to choose Deutschmark for us. After that, in 2002, when other European states adopted the euro, of course it was also natural that we would adopt the euro too. For us, it's much better to have the euro than to have our own currency, because we are a small country, and because of that, due to our incapability to work with after the war, to work with that economic situation in which we were, the euro became a very good solution for us. And of course, for foreigners, especially with the donors and all the people that donated money and also invested in Kosovo, it was much easier for them to work with euros than to work with another currency.
You are saying that the foreign investment would have been lower if we would have a domestic?
Yes, they would have been lower. It would have been more difficult for us to operate. We would be exposed to currency wars with other countries. Even our goal is to enter the European Union, and as that, we made the
That's
first
not a
big.
necessary condition.
That's not a necessary condition normally, but all the neighboring states which have own currencies eventually will adopt the euro. So we're much better in that.
But I mean, there are countries in.
There are countries who don't have the euro, but as we know, the advantages of having the euro over another currency are that you're safer in that situation. Small countries, they lose the cost of the benefit of having no currency. However, they win much more because they stability. Stability is more important than senior coverage, which is a loss of money to the government. However, that loss is eventually, if you analyze it, can be outperformed by the stability of having the euro. And foreign investments will increase because of the euro.
Thank you very much. Now, a question for Mr. Kochi. The argument that we're giving, we heard them, but what about the sovereignty of the country and the control of the monetary policy? Is it worth to give them up for these pros arguments that we're mentioning?
Thank you for your question. Since my answers were related to the previous arguments they used, so I would kind of use their arguments and see whether they are valid or at what point they are valid, if they are at all. First of all, Mr. Emir said that Euroization gives you more choice in the market, and I don't know how that is to be in practice, because you can have free choice in the market, absolutely whatever you want in Albania, also in Turkey, in China, or whatever country you have which is not dollarized or Euroized, yeah. And he mentioned, like, here we come to your question about, is it worth giving up the authority over your finances? Is it worth giving up your finances or the authority over your finances? And Mr. Emiri mentioned the seigniorage and actually the inflation that could potentially lead from overprinting of money in economic crisis. And yes, I agree to that, it could happen inflation. But if that is well managed, it can lead to seigniorage. And seigniorage, Mr. Kukoya, is not a loss of the government. Actually, it's a benefit of the government, which gets the money from the benefits of the central bank, which benefits from loaning monies to the other bank.
I'm the head of the central bank.
That's
so
the main argument.
I know what seigniorage is, but my argument before was that seigniorage, if you adopt the euro, you lose.
Seigniorage is not a loss to the the government.
Yeah, if you adopt the euro, yes, because you lose your own.
No, but still, senior audit, if we are talking about senior audit itself, it's not a loss. It's actually the opposite of it. And I guess we are not here to talk about, especially and exactly about Kosovo's Euroization, since I might agree that for poor states and developing states, Euroization or Dollarization can help them implement gain investments and all that. Their arguments are very
What
valid.
about on the general?
But in the general, if you are a well-developed economy, it's not worth of giving up your monetary policy tools and your control over your economy, because we can see Turkey, for example, from 2001 up to nowadays has had a boom in the economy, and it's using its lira so well. Like, it's also China manipulates with yen. It kind of drops its value when it needs, or does the opposite of it, and it's actually one of the best economies in the world.
Yes, but also other countries from Eurozone, for example, have increased their output and have seen good.
But they cannot impact like small countries who are like, or small countries or countries who are dollarized except USA. Like, if they are dollarized with US dollar, they cannot impact the value of the dollar, of the US dollar. So China can impact it, and if they impact it in the right way and the proper way, it will be just a benefit for China. But I agree to the argument that it can lead to inflation if it's overprinted and mismanaged.
That's main beneficial for us because we have the euros, we are protected from currency wars.
Who are us?
Kosovo as a nation
But
has
this
the euro.
topic is not about Kosovo's Euroization, it's Euroization in
We are taking
general.
an example of Kosovo, the whole idea.
I'm agreeing with
We
you,
have,
but I'm
we have
telling you,
one-
this example is not applied everywhere.
But we have our neighbor countries such as Albania,
Still small country.
Serbia.
Small
We
country.
also mentioned Turkey and China.
Yes,
talking
we could wish to be the United States or to be another European country, big European
Yeah.
country, but in this case, it's a discussion about how Euroization, dollarization would benefit small economies like
No, it's
Kosovo.
not like that.
Because we're us.
The topic of the today is not like that.
Kosovo economic challenge, so I'm talking for Kosovo, please.
Okay, then,
Again, when you
but
go your own
then I
experience,
have to
you
go
don't
to another debate. I would probably sit next to you because I agree to you in Kosovo, but
No,
not.
of course, our guests are from Kosovo because we
Yeah.
are having this debate in Kosovo also, and it will be taken as an example of how Kosovo managed, but also some arguments on the general standpoint.
Yeah.
I think it is also beneficial for the general population to know how their economy is managed and who is managing their economy. So
Okay. I will turn to Mr. Zika. What about in times of severe crisis, this lack of independence that Mr. Tashi mentioned, how would this affect the lender of last resort function for that country?
First, I'm gonna just add something what Mr. Kukoida said. There are some countries, our neighboring countries like Macedonia, Albania, but also the European country that is actually in Europe but does not accept euro as their first currency is Hungary. You can see that these countries doesn't really mean that if you want to join EU, you need euro as the first currency. Why is that? Because first of all, when you actually accept euro or dollars, you actually lost the pride of your nation. First, you're letting others control your economy. So your economy.
Decision with pride.
But sometimes
Why not?
why not?
We
Because
have to be rational.
because in the end, it's European Central Bank or the federal bank that is in the United States, but one of those will control your inflation-deflation situations. Now, the other thing is that national monetary authority is lost because you will start getting policies ordered from those two central banks which will control you. And the other thing is, and most important thing is senior is that our government, these guys that are sitting in front of us, they are losing the money.
You mentioned all the seniors.
But I asked the question about lender of last resort function, so that is
In the severe crisis, when we can't print really our money, we are actually getting into even more debt. Why? Because our banks are lack of money. They give everything out. They have less liquid assets such as money, and they need help from the central bank. But actually, our central bank can't really print this money, so now we can't give that to the banks. So here starts the banking system to fail. When the banking system starts to fail, your country.
But the central bank has also other tools, except it's not only issue.
Yeah, but the injection of the money is necessary in this emergency. We can take the examples of the 2007-8 when the brothers Lehman Bank failed because the federal bank couldn't inject really money into that because the debt was very high because the money was out.
Would you like to ask?
Yeah, I wanted to counter-argue on the aspect.
I will leave the counter-argument at the end and then okay. So, one question for Mr. Ramirez. So you mentioned here that Kosovo, because we cannot escape the fact that Kosovo has adopted euro and is part of Euroization, and this country is very dependent on remittances. So a change for the worse in the European market would cause a lot of damage in the economy of Kosovo as well. So, would it happen greater if Kosovo would have its own currencies and therefore, as they are suggesting, to intervene and control better?
Based on my opinion and in fact that we are using, we can say that Kosovo would it be better to have euro like we have right now, because most of the remittances will come from or from countries that use euro. Almost 18 countries out of 20 in Eurozone using euro. So most of them, they come from Germany, France, Belgium. So those remittances will help Kosovo just to have, for example, price transparency first with money. They will reduce the exchange rate uncertainty, so people will have saver money in case of euro. But if you have your own money, like Albania that has lag, you will be stopped.
There are remittances in Albania as well.
From Italy,
But
one of the main economies in the euro.
My question is not whether remittances are good or bad, but whether they, if a change for the worse, let's say on the European market, hypothetically speaking, would lead to a worse position in Kosovo, and therefore, since we do not have our own currency, we are, let's say, there's not a lot of what we can do to change.
But in this case, it's better to have euro than having your own money, because most of the money comes from the states that use euro. In this case, they will be saver. People who send their money will be saver. In this case, the exchange rates, price transparency, transaction costs are some of benefits in using euro rather than using our own money.
This was your own opinion that it's better to have euro, but we take in consideration there are around 1 billion euros as remittance, in form of remittances that come in Kosovo within a year. Actually,
I think your data is good.
almost 1 billion, 19, it's almost 1 billion.
4% of GDP, I think, so today, yes, IMF figure.
So it's gonna be 800 till 1 billion is there. That really doesn't matter. But if we, for example, make our currency, we say that our currency will start appreciating because the remittances will start giving up to our currency the value because the need for the transaction.
What if you're...
Yeah, but I have
The cost to change our currency now from euro to our own currency will be higher than the benefits.
But
If you do
it's
you're a military analyst.
it's gonna be in the short run, but not in the long run.
In the long run,
because
in the long run,
in the
long run, it is by
till one point, and they will start to decrease, so it will equalize with the
Long run,
so the
dollarization,
later, now we're gonna
Euroization,
need, the government will benefit from the.
I go on to
You mentioned-
changing it will be be higher.
It will be higher. In the long run, it will get equal.
What about the credibility of this currency? I mean, it cannot be on par with the euro that we are using today. You're saying that it will appreciate, but there is a problem.
He was right. In very short term, it will cost us. But in the long run, it will start to get in our sense. Our currency will benefit. So the credibility will be.
So you're saying that
we know in long term.
We're
Because there are monetary analysts and policy.
We're talking about hypothetical terms. In hypothetical situations,
Yes.
Kosovo
but
changes the currency from euro into another currency.
Why does not Albania, for example, suffer from such problems that you're mentioning? Because Italy is one of the strongest economy after France, Germany, in the Euro. What most of the remittances on Albania, I can't really say 80 or 90%, but also Greece has them with remittances, but still they have their own currency and their economy is one of the upper middle.
We're taking a hypothetical situation of Albania. First off, we need to analyze that Albania has the lek. The lek has smaller value. You can buy more lek with 1 euro than you can buy with 1 lek euros. So when they exchange the money from the remittances, it's the lek. I mean, the euros has more value than the lek, so they get more money in remittances when they go to Albania. The values is the same, but they get more. So Albania, if Albania wanted to change the currency to euro, if they ever want to do that, the cost of changing the currency would be higher. Because first off, they have to take all the money that is inside the country out of circulation. To take that, they would have to do the exchange rate from lek to euro.
Yeah.
After that,
We did the same thing with Deutschmark to euro in Kosovo.
in Kosovo, it was different because of our situation. Because of our situation and our war and our bank system was
How was it cheap?
financial
We didn't
system
have a
wasn't
bank.
created.
We have
And
microfinance.
people did not have zero confidence
that's
in the
even
banking system.
the discussion.
So because of that, Kosovo's natural way was to go from Deutschmark to euro.
Yes, but
It's
the
the same
question-
thing. It's the same thing as Albania.
The people choose the currency,
Let's
Not different.
not the country.
about the credibility that I mentioned. It's not only the remittance, it's also the investment that you are mentioning.
But we can take example of
Would
Turkey.
they
For
have been
example,
larger
Turkey from
if
2000.
Kosovo, would they have been larger if Kosovo would have its own currency, or it would have, as it's been using, euro, or in general terms?
We can take an example of Turkey.
Living in Kosovo.
But the idea of this discussion is Euroization and Dollarization in general, not only in Kosovo. Because that's why we mentioned Italy and other countries. We can take now example of Turkey. Since 2000 until 2003, when Recep Tayyip Erdogan came in power, till that time, economy of Turkey was downward. The debt and loans were so high in the World Bank. Within a decade, 2013, 2014, it's almost. It was 1 decade. The loan was.
This is not a matter of currency. This is a matter of economic growth. Turkey experienced growth.
The other thing is that
That's
from that time, from 2014, they gave $4 to $5 billion to the World Bank as whatever they can do with the property of Turkey. How? Because the Turkish lira was really strong till one point, but they now started to depreciate, and the transactions from outside the investments in Turkey lead to development because they have their own currency. They didn't get euro.
Yes, and so one question for Mr. Fashi. What about the loss in currency revenue? Will they be enough to offset the gain that will be done by the reduction of the transaction cost caused by euro and Euroization and Dollarization?
Well, the effect of this mirage is that the government benefits from it. But if you
don't not have it, then you miss it.
yeah, of course. I was just going to tell Chad that there is an argument that probably they will use also as if you are dollarized, if you become a dollarized country, you will get probably a port if US decides, for example, for you to get dollarized, if US decides to share the some benefits from or some this kind of seigniorage for your port or your economy, it might do that, but it's still on the part of US decision to do that or not to do that. And still, if US would do that, it would not give you the full seigniorage you would come. Like I know that from dollarization, seigniorage, you lose the seigniorage, and your question was really accurate and well formed. It depends on what kind of economy you are. If you are a Kosovo level economy, the opportunity cost of losing seigniorage is lower than the transaction cost.
Okay,
but
that's
if
why
you
we
are,
want now.
I must finish this one.
Okay.
I'm talking about two examples. If you look at this in a low economy level, seigniorage is you don't lose much from seigniorage, but China, for example, or Turkey, high economies, they lose from the seigniorage.
And going to the last question for Mr. Bukharian, I will mention Kosovo here as well because a lot has been said about higher inflation. What would have been the borrowing costs are not decreasing as would be suggested by these higher investments. So why shouldn't we follow the path of our neighbors and who have their own currency and also face the lower borrowing costs?
Because of our heritage, because of where we came from, because of that.
We didn't came from Europe.
No, we didn't came from Europe, but as I mentioned before, the people choose the currency. And during the 2000s, there was people
lose their pride.
After the war, people used Deutsche Mark to make transactions. Not because of the remittance, but because it was the currency that they used. So the best option for us was to use the Deutsche Mark at the beginning and then the euro. It would have been much different if the people refused. But since you are the people and you choose,
but the borrowing cost would not have been decreased if you would have our own.
that's a hypothetical situation. You never know what would happen.
But it is a hypothetical because either one is happening. Either
But
we are dollarized, we
other countries experience, because there are two types. You can use the currency but not be fully dollarized, and you can be fully dollarized or euroized, as in our case. However, as Panama and Ecuador had before that, they faced very high inflation because they had other currencies. When they adopted the dollar, they got stabilized. In the long run, adopting the euro was the best choice for us. Stability is better than small revenues because the opportunity cost.
Very much. Let's have a last minute to add something or discuss, and also then we will open the questions. You can start.
Yeah, I wanted to add something for something that looked unlogical. How pride can have, what does pride has to do with
But pride was
economy?
mentioned.
Yes, by my
Colleague
of mine, and the kind of argument of that was like, what does have pride to do with economy? It actually has, because it impacts the consumer's choice, and if the consumer's choice is impacted, so he will choose to buy your own domestic products rather than foreign products, which will be at the market by a lower price than the foreign products. This will give a boost to the economy. I've seen in Turkey last summer, I've seen Turkey was going to produce a car. I don't know exactly if they did produce it already, but already 16% of the capacity of production was pre-ordered just because it was Turkish and it was from Wilbira.
So this is it. Anything to add? Nothing? Mr. Guerra?
To counter this argument,
We'll just keep it short. So
small and short is that economic growth and production and food has nothing to do with currency. Currency is something much different.
I'm telling you how different.
No, but we don't know. But then
No,
to add the last bit to conclude, Mr. Emere?
With transaction cost, with single currency, being no longer cost involved in change, that will be beneficial. Because all the the exchange rate, how much it is. So you, in this case, you will lose the tourist, you will lose your money. So in this case, you directly benefit
If
from
you
tourism.
look at the data, Macedonia is ranked number 6 out of 100 and something countries for foreign investments.
But if you look,
With their own currency.
but if you look with Euroization, most of the country led to 6% increase in tourists with euro, since euro is used from 2000.
But is it better? Is it better for a country to produce more, their productivity to get higher, or to attract tourism?
Would you think all countries that use euro would be stronger than Macedonia?
Yes, for sure.
By what?
Okay,
How would
so
you
let's
say
conclude.
that
Let's open to
Macedonia-
question from the audience. If anyone has any question, Mr.
I have a question for Mr. Jeka. I observed that Jeka is a supporter of having their own currency, but also for Kosovo. What do you mean in an environment where neighbors are not very friendly to you? What could have happened with the risk of currency attacks to Kosovo? If, for example, Serbia attacks your currency and creates a recession, what will be the cost of the monetary independence?
I'm not really a adequate person to ask this question. No. In this case, when you face an attack from the
Currency attack.
currency attack from the neighboring countries such as Serbia, because of, for example, we will really face problem because our productivity is very low, and we import from other countries. So it would be better to stay as Euro, because personally, without in the other side of this debate, I'm pro Euroization, but it was. But the best way would if we would look up from the euro.
Any other question?
The biggest threat for Kosovo would be that. Currency attacks from Serbia. And with our weak management of our own currency at the central bank, this professor, which it was I'm talking of records. It would be much more difficult, professor, to